The gunshot echoed through the valley like thunder as Lily Armstrong ran for her life, her breath ragged and her heart pounding against her ribs. The April rain of 1878 had turned the Kansas soil to mud, causing her boots to sink with each desperate step. Behind her, the shouts of men grew louder, their lanterns bobbing in the darkness like angry fireflies. Lily's torn dress clung to her skin, her golden hair once carefully pinned now hanging in wet ropes down her back. She had been running for what felt like hours, fleeing the man who had bought her from her stepfather like cattle at auction. Through the curtain of rain, Lily spotted a faint light in the distance. A small ranch house sat nestled at the base of the foothills, smoke curling from its chimney despite the late hour. With renewed determination, she pushed forward, praying whoever lived there would show mercy to a desperate woman. As she approached the modest homestead, a figure emerged from the barn, lantern in hand. Tall and broad-shouldered, a man stepped into view, his face shadowed beneath the brim of his hat. Behind him stood a magnificent chestnut stallion, already saddled despite the late hour. "Please," Lily gasped, collapsing to her knees before him. "They're coming. Help me." Her voice broke as she glanced over her shoulder at the approaching lights in the distance. The man raised his lantern, illuminating her face. His eyes, blue as a summer sky, widened slightly at the sight of her bruised cheek and split lip. "Who's after you, miss?" His voice was deep, with the slight drawl of someone who'd spent years under the western sun. "Men who believe they own me," Lily whispered, clutching at his coat sleeve. "Please don't make me go back," she begged, tears mingling with the rain on her face. "I'd rather die than return to that place." The man's expression hardened as he looked toward the approaching lights. Without another word, he extinguished his lantern and helped Lily to her feet. Leading her quickly to his horse, he lifted her onto the saddle before mounting behind her. "Hold tight," he instructed, his breath warm against her ear as he wrapped a protective arm around her waist. The cowboy mounted his horse and swore she never would go back, urging the stallion forward with a click of his tongue. The powerful animal surged beneath them, carrying them away from the approaching danger and into the night. "Name's Caleb Wade," he said as they rode hard through the rain-soaked plains. "And you have my word. Miss No one's taking you anywhere you don't want to go." Lily clutched the saddle horn, her body tense against his. "Lily Armstrong," she managed to reply, her voice nearly lost in the sound of hoofbeats and rain. "Thank you, Mr. Wade." "Caleb," he corrected, guiding his horse up a narrow trail that wound into the hills. "Save your thanks until we're safe." As they climbed higher into the rugged terrain, Lily felt the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. Even if her pursuers tracked them this far, they'd have a hard time following in the dark. The rain had begun to taper off, leaving a heavy mist that shrouded their escape. "We'll head to my line cabin," Caleb explained. "It's a few hours' ride, but no one will find us there." Lily nodded, too exhausted to speak. Her eyelids grew heavy as the rhythmic motion of the horse lulled her into a state between waking and sleeping. She fought against unconsciousness, afraid to let her guard down. "Rest," Caleb said softly, as if reading her thoughts. "I'll keep you safe." Something in his voice, steady and certain, made her believe him. Lily allowed herself to lean back against his chest, the steady beat of his heart a comforting cadence that eventually pulled her into darkness. When she awoke, the first pale light of dawn was breaking over the eastern horizon. They had stopped moving, and Caleb was gently shaking her shoulder. "We're here," he said, dismounting before reaching up to help her down. Lily's legs nearly buckled as her feet touched the ground. Caleb's strong hands steadied her, lingering perhaps a moment longer than necessary before he led her toward a small cabin nestled among a stand of pines. The line cabin was simple but sturdy, a single room with a stone fireplace, rough-hewn table, and narrow bed pushed against the far wall. Caleb moved efficiently, starting a fire while Lily stood awkwardly in the center of the room, suddenly aware of her bedraggled appearance. "There's some spare clothes in that trunk," Caleb said, nodding toward a wooden chest at the foot of the bed. "They belonged to my sister before she married and moved east. They might be a bit large, but they're dry." "Your sister?" Lily asked, relief evident in her voice. A ghost of a smile touched Caleb's lips. "Yes, my sister. I'll tend to thunder outside while you change. Take your time." Once alone, Lily moved to the trunk with stiff, aching limbs. Inside, she found several simple dresses, undergarments, and a nightgown, all neatly folded. She selected a blue calico dress and quickly changed, grateful to be free of her mud-soaked clothing. When Caleb returned, she was seated before the fire, combing through her tangled hair with her fingers. He paused in the doorway, struck by the transformation. Even with her bruised face and exhausted eyes, there was a quiet beauty about her that the firelight seemed to enhance. "Better?" he asked, setting his saddlebags on the table. "Much," Lily replied, offering a tentative smile. "Thank you for the clothes. And for—" She gestured vaguely, unable to articulate the enormity of what he'd done for her. Caleb nodded, understanding in his eyes. He moved to the small stove in the corner and set about preparing a simple meal of beans and coffee. As he worked, Lily studied him covertly. He was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps 30, with weathered skin that spoke of years working outdoors. His hands were calloused but moved with surprising gentleness as he prepared their food. "You must have questions," Lily said finally, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. Caleb poured coffee into 2 tin cups before answering. "Only one that matters right now. Are you in danger?" Lily accepted the cup he offered, warming her hands around it. "Yes," she admitted softly. "Harold Blackwood, he's a cattle baron with land north of here. My stepfather owed him money, and—" She swallowed hard. "He offered me as payment 3 months ago. Said it would be a proper marriage, but it was nothing of the sort. He kept me locked in a room, only let me out when he wanted to." Her voice trailed off, the memory too painful to voice. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice even. "How did you escape?" "One of the kitchen girls took pity on me. She left my door unlocked during dinner. I took what little money I could find and ran." Lily stared into her coffee. "Blackwood will have men searching everywhere. He's not a man who lets go of what he believes is his property." "You're not property," Caleb said firmly, "and Blackwood has no authority here. This is Graham County land, outside his influence." Lily shook her head. "You don't understand. He has friends, powerful friends. Judges, lawmen. My word against his will mean nothing." Tears threatened again, but she fought them back. "I'm sorry to involve you in this. Perhaps it would be best if I moved on come nightfall." "No." The single word was spoken with such quiet authority that Lily looked up in surprise. Caleb set his cup down and leaned forward, his eyes intent on hers. "You're safe here. My ranch is small, but it's mine, free and clear. And I have friends, 2 good people who won't stand for what Blackwood's done." "Why would you risk yourself for a stranger?" Lily asked, unable to comprehend such kindness after months of cruelty. Caleb was silent for a long moment. "Because 8 years ago, someone did the same for me when I needed it most," he finally said. "Now eat your beans before they get cold. You'll need your strength." The following days settled into an unexpected routine. Caleb insisted Lily remain at the line cabin while he rode back to his main ranch to check on his hands and livestock. Each day he returned with supplies, news, and once, a book of poetry that made Lily's eyes light up with pleasure. "I thought you might like something to read," he said almost shyly, handing her the worn volume of Wordsworth. "It was my mother's." Lily traced the embossed leather cover with reverent fingers. "I haven't read anything in months," she admitted. "Blackwood said reading gave women ideas above their station." A rare smile crossed Caleb's face. Then I reckon you'd better read it twice. On the 5th day, Caleb arrived with a concerned expression that immediately put Lily on edge. Blackwood's men were in town yesterday, he said without preamble. Asking questions, flashing your likeness around, offering a reward for information. Lily sank onto a chair, her momentary peace shattered. How much time do we have? Hard to say. They didn't seem to be heading this way yet, but it's only a matter of time before someone points them toward my land. Caleb ran a hand through his dark hair. I've been thinking on it. We need to get you somewhere Blackwood can't reach you. Where would that be? Lily asked bitterly. He has connections throughout the territory. California, Caleb replied. My sister and her husband have a place near Sacramento. You'd be safe there, beyond Blackwood's reach. California? Lily whispered, the word both terrifying and tantalizing. That's nearly 2,000 miles. By train, it's a journey of days, not months, Caleb explained. We take the Kansas Pacific to Denver, then the transcontinental line west. Lily twisted her hands in her lap. I have no money for such a journey. I do, Caleb said simply. Why? Lily's voice broke on the word. Why would you do this for me? You barely know me. Caleb moved to kneel before her, taking her trembling hands in his. I know enough, he said softly. I know you're brave and strong. I know you deserve better than what life's handed you so far. And I know I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try to help. The sincerity in his eyes made something flutter in Lily's chest, a feeling she'd thought had been beaten out of her in Blackwood's house. She squeezed his hands, unable to speak her gratitude. We'll leave tomorrow at first light, Caleb continued, straightening up. Pack what you need. Travel light. That night, as Lily lay on the narrow bed, Caleb had insisted on taking the floor since her arrival. She stared at the ceiling beams, her mind racing. California seemed like a dream, a place where she might truly be free. But leaving meant never seeing Caleb again, a thought that caused an unexpected ache in her heart. Morning came too quickly. Caleb was already saddling Thunder when Lily emerged from the cabin, her small bundle of borrowed clothes clutched to her chest. There's coffee on the stove, he said, not looking up from his task. Lily paused, drinking in the sight of him, broad shoulders silhouetted against the rising sun, his movements efficient and graceful. In less than a week, this man had become her protector, her friend, perhaps something more that she dared not name. The ride to town was mostly silent, each lost in their own thoughts. They avoided the main roads, taking winding paths through the hills that added hours to their journey, but kept them hidden from prying eyes. By mid-afternoon, they crested a ridge that offered a view of Waukene below, the Kansas Pacific Railroad tracks cutting through the landscape like a steel lifeline. We'll approach from the south, Caleb said, reining in thunder. The station master's an old friend. He'll help us board without drawing attention. As they descended toward town, a distant cloud of dust on the northern road caught Lily's attention. Her blood ran cold as she made out the shapes of riders, at least 6 of them heading toward Waukene at a gallop. Caleb, she said urgently, pointing toward the dust cloud. Riders coming fast from the north. Caleb followed her gaze, his expression darkening. Blackwood's men, he said grimly. They must have gotten word we were heading for the railroad. He turned Thunder off the trail, leading them into a dense copse of trees. We need a new plan. Hidden among the trees, they watched as the riders entered town, splitting up to cover different areas. Even from a distance, Lily recognized 2 of Blackwood's most trusted men, brutal enforcers who had delighted in tormenting her during her captivity. They'll watch the station, Lily whispered, fear clawing at her throat. We'll never make it onto a train. Caleb's face was set in determined lines as he studied the town below. There's another way, he said finally. A freight train comes through just after midnight, stops briefly to take on water. It's heading west to Denver. If we can get on board unnoticed. It's too dangerous, Lily protested. If they catch you helping me, they'll kill you. If we stay here, they'll find us eventually, Caleb countered. This is our best chance. As darkness fell, they made their way carefully toward the western edge of town, where the water tower stood beside the tracks. They left Thunder hidden in a small grove, Caleb removing the saddle and bridle to allow the horse to graze freely. He'll find his way home, Caleb assured Lily, patting the stallion's neck affectionately. He's done it before. They crept toward the tracks, staying in the shadows. From their hiding place behind a stack of lumber, they could see Blackwood's men patrolling the main station a quarter-mile down the tracks. The night was clear, stars spread across the sky like diamonds on black velvet, offering more light than Lily would have preferred. When the train comes, Caleb whispered, it'll slow nearly to a stop at the water tower. We'll have to move fast, grab the ladder on one of the boxcars, and pull ourselves up. Lily nodded, trying to calm her racing heart. The waiting was excruciating, each minute stretching like an hour as they huddled in the darkness. Finally, a distant whistle announced the approaching freight train. Get ready, Caleb said, his hand finding hers in the darkness. Stay close to me. The massive locomotive came into view, its headlamp cutting through the night like a beacon. As it approached the water tower, the brakes engaged with a screech of metal on metal, slowing the train to a crawl. Now, Caleb urged, pulling Lily to her feet. They sprinted toward the slowing train, keeping low. Caleb reached the tracks first, his eyes scanning the passing cars for their opportunity. He spotted an open boxcar door and positioned himself to jump. There, he shouted over the noise of the train. I'll go first, then help you up. With practiced ease, Caleb leapt for the moving car, catching the edge of the door and pulling himself inside. He turned immediately, extending his hands toward Lily, who was running alongside, her breath coming in gasps. Jump, Caleb called. I've got you. Gathering her courage, Lily jumped, her hands connecting with Caleb's. For one terrifying moment, she felt herself suspended between earth and sky, her feet dragging against the gravel beside the tracks. Then Caleb's strong arms pulled her upward and into the safety of the boxcar. They collapsed together on the wooden floor, breathing heavily as the train began to pick up speed. Lily could hear shouts in the distance. Blackwood's men had spotted them, but it was too late. The train was moving too fast now for anyone to catch them. Caleb moved to the door, sliding it partially closed to shield them from view, while still allowing some light into their temporary sanctuary. The boxcar was half filled with crates, offering some measure of comfort and concealment. We made it, Lily said in wonder, still scarcely able to believe their escape. Caleb smiled, the tension in his face easing slightly. First step of many, but yes, we made it. He settled beside her, his back against a wooden crate. Try to rest. It's a long ride to Denver. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded Lily. The rhythmic clacking of the train wheels, the occasional whistle, and the unfamiliar swaying motion kept her alert. Beside her, Caleb remained vigilant, his eyes fixed on the passing landscape visible through the partially open door. Tell me about your ranch, Lily said after a while, wanting to distract herself from their precarious situation. Caleb glanced at her, a soft expression crossing his face. It's not much compared to Blackwood's spread. About 500 acres, mostly grazing land for my small herd. A decent house my father built before he passed. Good water from a spring-fed creek. His voice held undisguised pride. Been working it alone since my sister married and moved away 5 years back. No wife? Lily asked before she could stop herself. A shadow passed over Caleb's features. There was someone once. Sarah was her name. We were to be married, but she took fever during a harsh winter 3 years ago. His voice was matter-of-fact, but Lily could hear the pain beneath the words. Since then, it's just been me and the land. I'm sorry, Lily said softly. understanding loss all too well. Caleb nodded his acknowledgement. What about you? Before Blackwood, I mean. Lily leaned her head back against the crate, memories washing over her. My mother died when I was 16. My father remarried less than a year later, a widow with gambling debts he didn't know about. When father died in a hunting accident, my stepfather inherited everything. Her voice grew bitter. He worked his way through father's savings in 2 years, then started borrowing from men like Blackwood. When he couldn't pay, he offered me instead. And no one tried to stop him? Caleb asked, disbelief evident in his tone. Who would? My stepfather was the only family I had left. The local minister performed the ceremony without question. Blackwood paid him well to overlook my reluctance. Lily wrapped her arms around herself, the memories still raw. I tried to run once before, about a month after the wedding. Blackwood found me and... She touched the faint scar above her eyebrow. He made sure I understood the consequences of disobedience. Caleb's hand clenched into a fist, but his voice remained gentle when he spoke. No one will hurt you like that again, Lily. I promise you that. The train journeyed through the night, carrying them ever westward. As dawn broke, painting the Kansas plains in hues of gold and amber, Lily finally succumbed to exhaustion, her head resting against Caleb's shoulder. She awoke to the sensation of the train slowing. Disoriented, she sat up quickly, momentarily forgetting where she was. Easy, Caleb said, his hand steadying her. We're approaching Denver. We need to get off before they start unloading these cars. Outside, the landscape had changed dramatically. The flat plains had given way to rolling foothills, with the majestic Rocky Mountains visible in the distance. The city of Denver sprawled before them, a bustling hub of activity at the gateway to the west. As the train slowed to navigate a bend, Caleb slid the door wider. We'll jump here, he said, gauging the speed. The ground's grassy, should be a softer landing. I'll go first to make sure it's safe. Before Lily could protest, Caleb had leapt from the train, landing in a controlled roll before springing to his feet. He waved for her to follow, positioning himself to catch her. Taking a deep breath, Lily jumped, the sensation of falling momentarily terrifying before Caleb's arms encircled her, breaking her fall. They tumbled together onto the grassy embankment, Caleb taking the brunt of the impact. Are you hurt? Lily asked anxiously, scrambling off him. Caleb sat up, wincing slightly as he rotated his shoulder. Nothing serious, he assured her, getting to his feet and helping her up. Come on. We need to get to the station and catch the transcontinental line. They made their way into Denver, blending with the crowds that filled the growing city's streets. At a small general store, Caleb purchased fresh clothing for both of them, allowing them to shed their travel-worn garments for something more presentable. If Blackwood's men telegraphed ahead, they'll be watching for a bedraggled woman and a dusty cowboy, Caleb explained as he paid for their new attire. Not a well-dressed couple heading west. The word couple sent an unexpected warmth through Lily, though she knew Caleb meant it only as their cover story. Still, as she changed into the simple but elegant blue dress he'd selected, she couldn't help wondering what it might be like to truly be Caleb Wade's wife, to share his life and his ranch, to belong somewhere again. At the Denver station, Caleb purchased 2 tickets for the Transcontinental Railroad. The next westbound train wouldn't depart until morning, forcing them to spend the night in Denver. We'll need to find lodging, Caleb said, scanning the area around the station cautiously. Somewhere not too conspicuous. They found a modest hotel several blocks from the station, catering primarily to families and business travelers rather than the rowdier establishments that lined the streets closer to the rail yards. We'll need a room for the night, Caleb told the clerk, placing coins on the counter. For my wife and myself. The clerk barely glanced up as he pushed the register toward them. Caleb signed with a flourish Mr. and Mrs. Charles Wilson before accepting the key. The room was small but clean, with a single bed, washstand, and chair. As the door closed behind them, an awkward silence fell between them. "I'll sleep in the chair," Caleb said quickly, setting their small bundle of possessions on the floor. "You take the bed." "You've slept on the floor for nearly a week," Lily protested. "You can't spend another night uncomfortable because of me." "It's no hardship," Caleb assured her, though the dark circles beneath his eyes told a different story. He had barely slept during their journey, always vigilant, always protecting her. "At least rest properly until dinner," Lily insisted. "The bed is large enough. I'll sit by the window and keep watch." Too exhausted to argue, Caleb finally acquiesced, stretching out on the bed fully clothed, his boots carefully placed on the floor beside him. Within minutes, his breathing deepened, exhaustion claiming him. Lily sat in the chair by the window, watching the bustling Denver street below. Miners, businessmen, families, and ladies of questionable virtue all moved through the thoroughfare, a tapestry of Western life. She found herself wondering about their stories, their journeys, whether any of them were running from something as she was. Her gaze drifted to Caleb, his face relaxed in sleep, looking younger without the weight of concern that usually creased his brow. In the weeks since he'd rescued her, he had asked for nothing in return, expecting no reward for his kindness. Men like him were rare, perhaps unique in Lily's experience. As evening approached, Caleb stirred, sitting up with the alertness of a man accustomed to waking ready for action. His eyes found Lily immediately, as if assuring himself she was still there. "You should have woken me sooner," he said, running a hand through his tousled hair. Lily smiled. "You needed the rest." They ventured out for dinner, finding a small restaurant that offered decent food at reasonable prices. Over a meal of beef stew and fresh bread, they discussed the journey ahead. "The train leaves at 9 tomorrow," Caleb explained. "It's 4 days to Sacramento, if the weather holds and there are no delays. My sister Charlotte will meet us at the station." "And then?" Lily asked, the question that had been hovering between them finally spoken aloud. Caleb studied his coffee. "Charlotte and her husband James have a good-sized farm. They've been wanting help someone to teach their children. Charlotte mentioned in her letters that they were looking for a governess." "You think they'd hire me?" Lily asked, hope flickering to life. "I have some education. My father insisted on it, though my stepfather thought it wasteful." "They would be fortunate to have you," Caleb said with quiet conviction. "And you'd be safe there, far from Blackwood's reach." Lily nodded, though the thought of saying goodbye to Caleb filled her with an unexpected sadness. "And you? Will you return to Kansas?" "I'll stay a few days to make sure you're settled, then head back," Caleb confirmed. "The ranch won't run itself, and I've already been away longer than I planned." The rest of the meal passed in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. As they walked back to the hotel, Lily found herself memorizing everything about this man who had risked so much for her, the set of his shoulders, the way he constantly scanned their surroundings for danger, the gentle way he offered his arm as they crossed the muddy street. Night fell over Denver, bringing a chill to the spring air. In their small hotel room, the awkwardness returned as they prepared for sleep. "I insist on taking the chair tonight," Lily said firmly. "You need proper rest before our journey."
Caleb shook his head.
"I've slept rough most of my life, Lily. One more night won't harm me. We could." Lily hesitated, a blush coloring her cheeks. "The bed is large enough for both of us if we're careful." "I trust you, Caleb." Their compromise was a blanket placed down the center of the bed, a barrier more symbolic than practical. They lay on their respective sides, careful not to touch, though Lily was acutely aware of Caleb's presence inches away. "Caleb," she whispered into the darkness. "Yes." His voice was equally soft, as if they might be overheard despite being alone. "Thank you. For everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." The bed shifted slightly as Caleb turned toward her, though the darkness hid his expression. "Live your life freely, Lily. Be happy. That's all the repayment I need. Morning brought clear skies and the promise of a new beginning. They arrived at the station early, Caleb insisting on caution despite their disguise as a respectable married couple. The transcontinental train was an impressive sight, larger and more luxurious than the freight train that had carried them to Denver. Their tickets afforded them seats in a passenger car that, while not extravagant, offered comfortable bench seating and large windows that showcased the spectacular scenery. As the train pulled from the station, Lily felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. Each mile took her further from Blackwood's reach, closer to freedom. The journey west was a revelation. Lily had never traveled beyond the Kansas territory, and the changing landscape captivated her, from the rugged beauty of the Rocky Mountains to the stark, alien vistas of the Utah desert. Through it all, Caleb remained her steadfast companion, pointing out landmarks, sharing stories of his own travels, making sure she ate regularly despite her nervousness. On their third night aboard the train, as they crossed the Nevada desert under a canopy of stars, Lily found herself unable to sleep despite the lateness of the hour. Most passengers dozed in their seats, including Caleb, whose head had finally dipped in exhaustion beside her. Careful not to wake him, Lily made her way to the observation platform at the rear of the car, seeking fresh air and solitude to sort through her tumultuous thoughts. The night air was cool against her face as she stood watching the tracks disappear into the darkness behind them. Couldn't sleep? Caleb's voice startled her. He stood in the doorway, his tall frame silhouetted against the dim light from the car behind him. Too many thoughts, Lily admitted as he joined her at the railing. Everything's happening so fast. A week ago I was Blackwood's prisoner, and now you're free, Caleb finished for her, his voice gentle. Because of you. Lily turned to face him, finding courage in the darkness. I keep wondering why. Why risk everything for me? Why spend your savings to send me to safety? Why care what happens to a woman you barely know? Caleb was silent for so long that Lily thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost lost beneath the rhythmic clacking of the train wheels. When I first saw you that night, soaked to the skin, terrified, but still fighting, something in me recognized something in you. He leaned against the railing, his eyes on the distant horizon rather than on her. I told you someone helped me once when I needed it most. What I didn't say was that before that, I was little better than the men who hunt you. Lily stared at him in disbelief. I don't understand. After the war, I was angry, lost. Fell in with a rough crowd, rustlers mostly. We took what wasn't ours, justified it however we could. Shame colored his words. One night it went bad. A rancher was shot. I didn't pull the trigger, but I was there, part of it. He took a deep breath before continuing. I ran. For days, I rode without stopping, certain a hanging posse was right behind me. When my horse finally gave out, I found myself on the doorstep of an old rancher named Jacob Miller. Instead of turning me in, he offered me work, a chance to rebuild my life honestly. Caleb finally turned to look at her. He saw something in me worth saving, just as I see something in you worth protecting. What do you see? Lily whispered, drawn inexorably closer to him. Caleb's hand rose to gently touch her cheek. Courage.
Strength.
A spirit that refuses to be broken, no matter what life throws at it. His thumb traced the faint scar above her eyebrow. Beauty, inside and out. The train rounded a curve, causing Lily to sway slightly. Caleb's hand steadied her, coming to rest at her waist. They stood frozen for a moment, so close that Lily could feel the warmth of his breath against her face. Lily, Caleb murmured, his voice rough with emotion. I never meant for this to happen, but I find myself thinking of you as more than someone to protect. Heart racing, Lily placed her palm against his chest, feeling the strong, steady beat of his heart. And I find myself thinking of you as more than my rescuer. The kiss, when it came, was gentle, a question rather than a demand. Lily answered by winding her arms around his neck, drawing him closer. Beneath the vast desert sky, with the rhythm of the train marking time, something new and fragile blossomed between them. When they finally parted, Caleb rested his forehead against hers, his breath uneven. "This complicates things," he said with a soft laugh. "Life is complicated," Lily replied, unwilling to relinquish her hold on him. "But this feels like the simplest thing in the world." They remained on the observation platform until the chill night air forced them back inside. As they returned to their seats, Caleb's hand found Lily's, their fingers intertwining as naturally as if they'd been doing so for years. The following day brought them into California, the landscape transforming once more as they descended into the Sacramento Valley. Lush greenery replaced desert scrub, and the air took on a different quality, softer, laden with the scent of growing things. As the train pulled into Sacramento Station, Lily felt a curious mixture of anticipation and dread. This was to be their parting place, where Caleb would deliver her to safety before returning to his life in Kansas. "How will we recognize your sister?" Lily asked as they gathered their meager belongings. "She'll recognize me," Caleb assured her. "It's been 5 years, but I doubt I've changed that much." Sure enough, as they stepped onto the platform, a slender woman with Caleb's same blue eyes rushed toward them, her face alight with joy. "Caleb," she cried, throwing her arms around her brother. "Oh, it's so good to see you." Caleb returned his sister's embrace with equal enthusiasm. "Charlotte, you look well. Where's that husband of yours?" "Minding the wagon," Charlotte replied, finally releasing him to look curiously at Lily. "And this must be Miss Armstrong. Caleb's telegram mentioned you'd be traveling together." "Lily, please," she said, extending her hand shyly. "Thank you for welcoming me on such short notice." Charlotte's warm smile put Lily immediately at ease. "Any friend of my brother's is welcome in our home. Come, James is waiting with the wagon. It's an hour's drive to the farm. You can tell us everything on the way." James Turner proved to be a jovial man with a ready laugh and kind eyes. He helped them load their belongings into the back of the wagon before setting off toward their homestead. As they traveled, Charlotte filled them in on the 5 years since she left Kansas. "The farm is doing well, 30 acres of orchards and another 20 in vegetables. We supply much of the fresh produce to Sacramento. The children help when they can, but they're still young. Mary's 7 and Thomas just turned 5. "And you need someone to teach them?" Lily asked, hope in her voice. Charlotte nodded enthusiastically. "The nearest school is in town, too far for daily travel. We've been teaching them ourselves, but with the farm demanding so much time." She smiled at Lily. "Caleb's letter said you have some education?" "My father believed daughters should be as well educated as sons," Lily explained. "I had tutors until I was 18. I can teach reading, writing, arithmetic, history, some natural sciences, and French." "French!" Charlotte exclaimed, clearly impressed. "That's more than we dared hope for. The position is yours if you want it, Lily. Room and board plus a small salary. And most importantly, a safe place far from your troubles in Kansas." The Turner farm was everything Caleb had described: a thriving operation with a comfortable 2-story house, several outbuildings, and row upon row of fruit trees just beginning to blossom. 2 small children ran to meet the wagon as it pulled into the yard, eager to greet their aunt and uncle and meet the newcomers. That evening, after a hearty meal and the children's enthusiastic interrogation of their new teacher, Lily found herself alone with Caleb on the porch. The night was warm, filled with the songs of frogs and crickets, so different from the Kansas prairie she had known all her life. "Charlotte and James seem wonderful," Lily said, leaning against the porch railing. "And the children are delightful. I think I could be happy here." Caleb nodded, his expression unreadable in the gathering darkness. "They're good people. You'll be safe with them." The unspoken hung between them that tomorrow Caleb would begin his journey back east, back to his ranch and the life he had built there. The thought brought an ache to Lily's heart that she couldn't ignore. "When will you leave?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "There's a train east the day after tomorrow," Caleb replied, moving to stand beside her. "I should be back in Kansas within the week." Lily nodded, fighting the tears that threatened. "Your ranch needs you, Lily." Caleb turned her gently to face him, his hands warm on her shoulders. "These past days with you have been. I never expected to feel this way again, after Sarah." "Nor I," Lily admitted. "After everything with Blackwood, I thought that part of me was dead." Caleb's hands moved to cup her face. "Come back with me." Lily stared at him in shock. "What?" "Come back to Kansas with me," Caleb repeated, his eyes intent on hers. "Not right away. Stay here a few months until we're certain Blackwood has given up the search. Then come home with me, to my ranch. As my wife, if you'll have me." "Your wife," Lily whispered, scarcely daring to believe what she was hearing. "I know it's sudden," Caleb said quickly. "I know we've known each other only a short time. But I also know that when I think of riding back to Kansas without you, it feels like leaving half my heart behind." Tears spilled freely down Lily's cheeks now, but they were tears of joy rather than sorrow. "Yes," she said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, I'll come back with you. Yes, I'll be your wife." Caleb's answering smile was radiant as he pulled her into his arms, his kiss a promise of the future they would build together. The following morning, they shared their news with Charlotte and James, who were surprised but delighted. "I knew something had changed in you, brother," Charlotte said, embracing Caleb warmly. "There's a light in your eyes I haven't seen since before Sarah passed." "We thought perhaps you might stay here in California," James added. "But I understand the pull of your own land. Kansas is in your blood." "And soon to be in Lily's as well," Caleb replied, his arm around her waist. The decision was made. Lily would remain with Charlotte and James for 3 months, teaching the children and allowing time for Blackwood's search to cool. Caleb would return to Kansas, settle his affairs, and prepare the ranch for his bride's arrival. Their parting at the Sacramento station was bittersweet. Alone on the platform, Caleb held Lily close, reluctant to let her go even as the train's whistle announced its imminent departure. 3 months, he murmured against her hair. "It will pass quickly." "Write to me," Lily urged, memorizing the feel of his arms around her. "Tell me everything about the ranch, about our future home." "Every day," Caleb promised. With a final, lingering kiss, he boarded the train, standing at the window as it pulled away from the station. Lily watched until the train disappeared from sight, her heart both heavy and lighter than it had ever been. For the first time in her life, she was looking forward to returning to Kansas not as someone's property, but as a beloved wife. The 3 months passed more quickly than Lily had anticipated. Charlotte and James proved to be not just employers but true friends, and the children responded enthusiastically to Lily's teaching. Each day brought a letter from Caleb, detailing the improvements he was making to the ranch house, his plans for expanding the herd, the new mare he'd purchased for Lily to ride. In turn, Lily wrote of her days with the Turner family, her growing confidence as a teacher, her excitement for their future together. With each exchange, their bond deepened despite the distance between them. By midsummer, it was time for Lily to make the journey east. No word had come of Blackwood's men in California, and Caleb's contacts in Kansas reported that the cattle baron seemed to have abandoned his search, focusing instead on a contentious land dispute with a neighboring rancher. Charlotte and James accompanied Lily to the station, the children clinging to their beloved teacher until the final boarding call. "You'll come back to visit," Charlotte insisted, embracing Lily tightly. "Both of you. I want to see my brother happy, and it's clear you're the one who makes him so." "We will," Lily promised. "And you must come to Kansas for the wedding." The journey east felt entirely different from the westward trip 3 months earlier, where before Lily had been running from danger, now she was traveling toward hope, toward love, and a future of her own choosing. Caleb was waiting on the platform when the train pulled into Waukene, his face breaking into a smile that outshone the summer sun when he spotted Lily at the window. Before the train had fully stopped, she was at the door, barely waiting for the conductor to position the steps before flying into Caleb's waiting arms. "Welcome home," he murmured against her lips as he swung her in a joyful circle. The ranch that awaited them was transformed from the modest homestead Caleb had described. The house, while still simple, had been freshly painted, with new curtains at the windows and a garden of wildflowers blooming alongside the front path. Inside, Caleb had added feminine touches: a cushioned rocking chair by the fireplace, a bookshelf filled with volumes of poetry and literature, a new quilt on the bed they would soon share. "It's perfect," Lily said, tears of happiness welling in her eyes as Caleb showed her through what would be their home. "Everything is perfect." They were married 2 weeks later in the small church in Waukene, with only a few friends in attendance. Lily wore a simple white dress that Charlotte had helped her select before leaving California, and Caleb wore the only suit he owned, looking somewhat uncomfortable but undeniably handsome. The local minister, a young man recently arrived from the East, conducted the ceremony with genuine warmth, having heard something of their story from the townspeople. "Love that grows from kindness and respect is the strongest foundation a marriage can have," he told them as they exchanged their vows. "May your lives together be blessed with joy, prosperity, and many years of happiness." Their wedding night was a revelation for Lily. Where her experience with Blackwood had been brutal and degrading, Caleb's touch was gentle, reverent, awakening feelings she had never imagined possible. In his arms, she found not just pleasure but healing, the last shadows of her captivity finally banished by the light of their love. As summer gave way to autumn, Lily and Caleb settled into the rhythm of ranch life together. Lily proved to be a quick study, learning to ride the gentle mare Caleb had chosen for her, helping with the cattle, transforming the house into a true home with her touches of warmth and beauty. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch, watching the sunset paint the Kansas sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple. Sometimes they would read aloud to each other from the books Lily treasured: Wordsworth's poetry, Dickens' tales, Austen's witty romances. Other times they would simply sit in companionable silence, content in each other's presence. News came occasionally from town, bits of gossip carried by neighbors or overheard during their monthly trips for supplies. Harold Blackwood had indeed given up his search for Lily, his attention consumed by a range war that had depleted both his finances and his standing in the community. Lily's stepfather had reportedly died in a bar fight in Dodge City, unmourned and quickly forgotten. "Does it bother you?" Caleb asked one evening after sharing this latest news. "Knowing they're still out there, living their lives after what they did to you?" Lily considered the question carefully before answering. "Once it would have. I dreamed of justice, or perhaps revenge.
But now,"
she smiled, taking his hand. "Now I realize living well, being happy with you, that's the best revenge I could ever have." Winter came early that year, blanketing the prairie in snow and confining them often to the warmth of their home. They used the time to plan for the future, expanding the herd in the spring, possibly adding a room to the house, discussing the children they both hoped would come. On Christmas Eve, as they sat before the crackling fire, Caleb presented Lily with a small wooden box. Inside lay a delicate gold locket. "Open it," he urged as she admired the intricate engraving on its surface. Inside was a tiny daguerreotype of the two of them, taken in town by a traveling photographer shortly after their wedding. They looked impossibly young, impossibly happy, Caleb standing tall and proud, Lily's face tilted up toward his with undisguised adoration. "It's beautiful," Lily whispered, tears gathering in her eyes as Caleb fastened the chain around her neck. I have something for you too, she said, suddenly shy as she handed him a small package wrapped in brown paper. Caleb unwrapped it carefully to reveal a pair of infant's booties, hand-knitted in soft blue wool. He stared at them uncomprehendingly for a moment before understanding dawned on his face. Lily, his voice was hushed with wonder. Are you? She nodded, her hands moving instinctively to her still, flat stomach. In the summer. July, the doctor thinks. Caleb gathered her in his arms, his joy too profound for words. That night, as snow fell softly outside their window, they held each other close, marveling at the miracle growing between them, the ultimate testament to the love that had begun on a rain-soaked night when a desperate woman had begged for help and a cowboy had sworn to protect her. Spring returned to the Kansas prairie, bringing new life and renewed hope. Lily's pregnancy progressed smoothly, her body blossoming as the land around them turned green once more. Caleb insisted she rest often, taking on extra work to ensure she didn't strain herself, his protectiveness both amusing and endearing to his independent wife. In July, as predicted, their son was born, a healthy boy with Caleb's blue eyes and a tuft of hair the same golden shade as Lily's. They named him Jacob, after the man who had given Caleb his second chance at life. As Lily nursed their son in the rocking chair by the window, Caleb often found himself watching them in wonderment, scarcely able to believe his good fortune. The angry, lost young man he had once been seemed a distant memory, replaced by a husband and father with everything to live for. "What are you thinking?" Lily asked one evening, catching his thoughtful gaze as she gently rocked their sleeping son. "That I'm the luckiest man in Kansas," Caleb replied, kneeling beside the chair to stroke his son's downy head. "That night when you ran to my barn, it changed everything." "You changed everything." Lily smiled, leaning forward to press a soft kiss to his lips. "We saved each other, I think." And as the sun set over their land, painting the sky in brilliant hues of red and gold, they both knew it was true. From the darkness of their pasts had come this radiant present, a love that had begun with a desperate plea and a solemn vow, and had grown into the kind of happiness neither had dared to dream possible. 2 years later, their daughter Charlotte joined the family, named for the aunt who had provided safe harbor when it was most needed. The ranch prospered under Caleb's careful management, growing to include not just cattle but horses as well, Caleb having discovered a talent for training the spirited mustangs that roamed the western plains. Lily started a small school in their home, teaching not just their own children but those of neighboring ranchers as well. Her reputation as an educated and patient teacher spread throughout the county, bringing a modest income that allowed them to further improve their property. They never forgot how their story began with fear and desperation on a stormy night. But with each passing year, that memory was overlaid with countless others. Jacob's first steps across the kitchen floor, Charlotte's delighted laughter as Caleb lifted her onto her first pony, quiet evenings by the fire with books and conversation, passionate nights in each other's arms. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Caleb surprised Lily with a journey, not fleeing danger this time, but traveling for pleasure to visit Charlotte and James in California. Their children, now old enough to appreciate the adventure, marveled at the changing landscape, the towering mountains, the vast deserts, just as Lily had done during her first journey west. The Turner farm had prospered as well, the orchards expanded, the children grown into teenagers with interests and ambitions of their own. Mary, now 17, had inherited her Aunt Lily's love of learning and was preparing to attend a women's college in San Francisco. Thomas, at 15, showed his father's gift for agriculture, already experimenting with new varieties of fruit trees. As the families reunited, sharing stories and laughter beneath the California stars, Lily found herself reflecting on the extraordinary path that had led her to this moment of contentment. "No regrets?" Caleb asked softly, reading her pensive expression as they walked among the moonlit orchard rows after the others had retired for the night. Lily shook her head, slipping her arm through his. Not a single one. Everything, even the darkest moments, led me to you, to our children, to this life we've built together. Caleb stopped, turning to face her in the silver moonlight. Though a decade had passed since their first meeting, his eyes still held the same tenderness, the same unwavering devotion that had given her courage when she needed it most. Please don't make me go back. You said that night, he recalled, his voice gentle with memory. I promised you then that you never would. It's a promise I intend to keep for all our days, Lily. I know, she whispered, rising on tiptoe to kiss him beneath the canopy of stars. I've never doubted it for a moment. And as they walked back toward the farmhouse where their children slept peacefully, Lily knew with absolute certainty that the desperate woman who had once begged for sanctuary had found not just safety, but her true home in the arms of the cowboy who had risked everything to save her, and in doing so, had saved himself as well.